and welcome to the second part of 1000 Angular Facts. Internationalization is the process of designing and preparing your application to be usable in different languages. ActivatedRoute contains the information about a route associated with a component loaded in an outlet. The activated route will be injected as a router service to access the information. In the below example, you can access route path and parameter. We configure the router with routes via the RouterModule.forRoot method and add the result to the AppModule's import array. Just in time is a type of compilation that compiles your application in the browser at runtime. So JIT compilation is the default when you run the ngbuild or ngserve locally CLI command. Using injectable in the service is one of the way to implement dependency injection in Angular. RxJS stands for Reactive Extensions for JavaScript, and it is a popular library which is used to work with the asynchronous data streams. If, default, if empty, and every are the conditional functions of RxJS. Retry, catch error, and retry when are the error handling functions of RxJS. Map, partition, buffer, buffer count, window counts, map2, and group by are the transformations function of RxJS. Ahead of time is a type of compilation that compiles your application at build time. For AOT compilation, include the --AOT options with the ngbuild or ngserve command as below. A singleton service is a service for which only one instance exists in an application. There are two ways to make a service a singleton in Angular. First one, set the providedIn property of the @injectable to root. Second one, include the service in the app module. AOT compiler works in three phases. Code analysis. In code analysis, the compiler records a representation of the source. Second one, code generation. It handles the interpretation as well as the place restriction on what it interprets. Third one is validation. In this phase, the Angular template compiler uses the TypeScript compiler to validate the binding expression in template. The slice pipe is used to create a new array or a string containing a subset of the element. The syntax below, like slice -0-5 will return from hello world string as hello. HTTP Interceptor is a multi-provider token that represents the array of registered HTTP interceptor object. Decimal pipe transforms a number into a string formatted according to local rules that determine group sizing and separate decimal points character and other local specific configuration. In order to use Interceptor, we need to implement HTTP Interceptor interface, and then each request need to be intercepted using intercept method. We can share data from parent component to child component using @input decorator. We import throw error from RxJS and catch error from RxJS/operators to implement throw error and catch error. To implement HTTP client, we import HTTP client HTTP error response from Angular /common/HTTP, and we inject dependencies through constructor parameter like below. To create post method using HTTP client like below example, we can call post method of HTTP client as this dot HTTP client dot post of type imply, and inside its parameter we pass URL of the API server as the first parameter, data as the second, and HTTP options as the third. To get the list of imply using HTTP client, we call get method by passing URL of the API server as the first parameter. To call the service method from component, we first import the service into component class, then we inject service as a dependencies inside the class constructor, and then we subscribe service method as this dot myService dot get all dot subscribe. AppShell is a way to render a portion of your application via a route at build time. This gives user a meaningful first paint of your application that appears quickly because the browser can render a static HTML and CSS without the need to initialize JavaScript. Bootstrap is a way to initialize and launch an application or system. In Angular, an app's root ng module has a bootstrap property that identifies the application's top level components. During the bootstrap process, Angular creates and inserts these components into the index.html host web pages, and you can bootstrap multiple applications in the same index.html, and each app contains its own component. So in this way we covered the second part of 1000 Angular facts.